All right, thank you everyone for your patience. It is now 6:30. We have a form of we still want to call the meeting order. Shay, can I get a roll call vote?
Yes. Ms. Oswald,
Present.
Jones,
Here.
Ms. Lane,
Present.
Ms. Holt,
Present.
Dr. Coleman,
Present.
Ms. Hartley,
Present.
Dr. Von Elliott, present. Ms. Morrell.
Present. Members of the board, as far as the agenda is concerned, we need to have a motion made to move item 6G to a discussion.
Actually, no.
She does it all. Okay, you all can hear me pretty good now? Yeah, all right. So before we approve the agenda, we need to, I need to have a motion to move item 6G to discussion.
So move.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, I have a motion to approve the agenda.
So move.
You have a second? Second. Are there any announcements? Yes, ma'am. So are there any announcements? I do have an announcement. If you guys will notice, I passed out you all some information that we received from the Missouri School Board conference that just took place in St. Charles. I don't know if anybody else, and I want to show this, I don't know if anybody else has received these items in the mail. This is from Steve. And I want to know if anybody has received recruiters coming to their home trying to recruit families to participate. The information that I gave you is very important, and you can read it at your
Can you pass
leisure.
that
Yes,
down?
I
Let's
should,
see what
so
it is.
you can see it and you can pass it down. This is a group theme, and I think that they've tried to stir up, I'm not going to say trouble, but they have tried to reach out to the residents of our school district. But I had never seen it like this, where they actually have recruiters, or even if these people weren't recruiters, they sure were passing these out and asking us to take it into consideration. And so I took both of those from the people that they didn't come, they were supposed to come by mail, but they were, the other ones that I have, they were recruiters and they just had some passing them out. The information that I gave you is very important because I think that as board members, as this information is being sent out to people and passed out to people, that it's important that we know and understand charter schools, how the Missouri School Board Association feels about charter schools, and the information that I gave you also has information in there as to what some of the charter schools are now calling themselves, or those individuals that are involved in trying to create charter schools. So at your leisure, you can look through it, and then if you have any questions, you can send those questions to me. But I think that it's important that we, just in case you have some constituents that come to you and say, hey, what is this all about, or whatever. I really wanted you guys to have that information. That we have that information, because we may have some people coming to you and they may be asking you about it. So I just didn't want you to, try to guess about the information. It's very, very, very informative. It even talks about the differences between public schools and charter schools. So I really wanted to make sure everybody had a copy of that. I gave you a copy, but I also gave a copy to Dr. Patton, and I also put a copy of Ismail's desk just in case people, call you all with regard to it. So that's the announcement that I wanted to make. Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. This is my last Thursday at so I have enjoyed my time until 11
Thank you.
Thank you for your service.
For your service. Are there any additional announcements? Thank you. We will now move to patron participation. Have you received any requests for patients to speak? Patrons to speak. Thank you. We will then move on to the superintendent's report.
I do have two things to discuss. I mentioned in last week's special Board of Education meeting that we would be coming this board today with the recommendation for our ACE alternative air program. We are still working with members of ACE and have a meeting scheduled for July 6th. And so it's our hope to bring a plan to the board at the July 12th meeting. And we apologize that we were not ready for this. And then my other announcement is, as many of you may or may not heard, we lost a student yesterday, and we're actually not sure if any of the other students are ours as well. But there was an accident Monday morning at approximately 8:45 a.m. on Florissant Road where 4 young people were driving a car. 3 were 13 and 1 was 9. We do know that one of the 13-year-olds was Dorian Thurman, and he was a student at Central Middle School. And so we have reached out to the family to offer whatever support we can. But as I said, the names of the other 3 have not been released at this time. But I would ask if we could do a moment of silence in honor of Dorian Thurman. Thank you, and we will keep you posted once we hear the arrangement, or if the other 3 students were ours as well.
We now move to items for information. Okay.
Item number 6A is the district's comprehensive school improvement plan. This is a report that's made several times during the year and is a collective of members of the district leadership team and others. This is in compliance with the CSIP goals that supports and aligns all the goals to the district's comprehensive school improvement plan, which is a requirement under DESE. It also is under policy IA. This item is for information purposes. Before I turn it over to Dr. Nichols, I do want to say that when we come back in the fall, after we've had our needs assessment with solution tree and we have our APR data, we will be coming with a revised CSIP plan. Dr. Nichols.
Good evening, Special Administrative Board, Dr. Pruitt Adams and colleagues. This evening, the team will provide you with a brief status update regarding the Comprehensive School Improvement Plan for the 2021-2022 school year. Slide 3, please. Our goal is to ensure that we meet the needs of scholars by ensuring that the core instructional program and processes will equip scholars with the skills needed to become productive citizens and to compete globally. Slide 4, please. The Comprehensive School Improvement Plan was created around the 6 core elements of effective instruction, leadership, collaborative culture, curriculum and assessment, technology, and finance and facilities. Slide 6, please. Smart leaders conducted meetings this year with their teams to evaluate the effectiveness of goals and their strengths. Each management oversight team member will provide you with a brief status update regarding the progress of each goal. Slide 7. Several themes are embedded throughout the Comprehensive School Improvement Plan. The instructional core program focuses on improving student achievement by improving teacher instructional practices and providing students with challenging content that highly engages them in the learning process around the instructional themes that are listed on your document. The comprehensive literacy model consists of daily small group and whole group daily instruction in word study, selective reading, writing, and comprehension. Guided math is a structure used for teaching math that allows the teacher to address the needs of learners via small group instruction, mini lessons, and center activities. Professional development is a process used to help individuals to grow and learn new skills in a specific area. Professional learning community is a process that allows educators to meet and collaborate to improve teaching and skills and student performance. Positive behavior intervention support is a system that is used to support student safety and improve student behavior. The district focus is around being responsible, respectful, and safe. Technology is a science or a device that is used to problem solve or perform a basic thinking process. And responsible intervention is the act of providing support to bring about improvement for scholars in the area of instruction.
And then,
Do you have any questions at this time regarding the process?
I will be filling in for Dr. Philip Kennedy with the data piece as he is out. As you look at the next slide, which is slide 8, that's the slide, gentlemen. As you can see, it says this is the MSIP APR data for 2021. We just finished the current 2022 MAP assessment at the close of the school year. It is anticipated that we will have that data late August, no later than early September, at which time we will come back and do an update around October, as I indicated earlier with the new revised CESA plan. Also, I just want to remind you that in the 2021 school year, that was a year of hybrid education for our scholars. We had some students who were in person, some students were not. And when it was time to do the assessment, it was difficult getting our students who were at home doing the virtual learning in to be tested. So with that, our attendance rate for the 2021 school year was 41.1% of our students who had the 90% attendance. The state shoots for 90% of the students, 90% of the time. Our graduation rate for year was 57.5, which is the lowest we've had in several years. We attribute that as well to the pandemic. And then our 5-year graduation rate was 63.2%. However, as it relates to college and career readiness, 10.2% of the students who took the assessment were at or above the state average. Those students who took advanced placement tests, 55.5% of them were at or above the state average. And for our post-secondary placement, 95.2% of the students who took the test got a qualifying score. Next slide, please. The next slide is our ELA MAP data from the 2021 school year. And as you can see, as I said, this data hasn't changed yet. We've shared this with our board. We know this is new for our new board members, but this was shared with our other board members back in February when we did an update. As you can see on this data as a district, we had 9.4% of our students at that time who were proficient in advanced. 51.7% were below basic, and 38.8% were basic. And so the notion is moving students from basic into proficient and advanced. Next slide, please. It is our MAP data for the same year as a district. At that time, we only had 1.6% of our students in proficient and advanced. 13% were basic, and 85.4% were below basic. So this tells us that we have a lot to do with regards to focusing on mathematics, which also serves as a justification for our new math coordinator. Next slide, please. In science, it was similar results. We had 5.6% of our students in proficient and advanced, 23.4% were basic, and 70.9% were below basic. We can also attribute this, I think, as we move forward to our lack of science teachers. Some of our middle schools don't have adequate enough science teachers as well. The next slide, please. This is the district's Pontus and Pinell reading data for elementary. And this graph shows the percentage of students in grades 1 through 5. And this is for this past school year of May 2022. And the graph represents the percentage of students who are reading at or above grade level as measured by the Pontus and Pinell, which was administered in May. As you can see on the data, grades 1, 2, and 5 show decreases. while grades 3 and 4 showed increases from the winter administration. The most significant increase was at grade 4 with a 10.3% increase. Next slide, please. The district STAR data is an assessment that this data here is for the 6th through 8th grade, and it shows how we measured in spring of 2022. This represents the percentage of our middle school students who scored at or above grade level as measured by the STAR assessment. Grade 6 saw a significant decrease. Grade 7 and 8 saw a slight decrease when compared to the winter percentages. Next slide, please. The next slide is the district's high school reading data, and that's grades 9 through 12. And this represents those reading at or above. As you can see, in 9 through 12, we showed increases. But when we got to the 12th grade, we showed a slight decrease compared to the winter percentages. And the biggest increase was in the 10th grade with a 5.8% increase. Next slide, please. The next slide is the district as a whole STAR data. On this graph, the STAR reading data is for the 21-22 school year, which was last year. Students took the assessment 3 different times. One in the fall, then in January, and then in the spring. The fall's data represented in blue, the winter in red, and the spring in yellow. The grades that showed growth were the early literacy, 4th grade, 5th grade, 7th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, and 12th grade. The district overall showed an increase of, I believe I came up with it earlier, it was 1.7%. Next one, the district STAR math data. This graph is from last year as well. The students took this assessment, as I said, 3 times. As a district, we had a 0.7 overall increase when you look at the district from the winter assessment, so the fall assessment, the winter assessment, and the spring assessment. Next slide. As I indicated, our MPI scores did not change. That's because DESE, based upon MTIP, has not made a change at this time. What will happen with this year's assessment, that will be our baseline. However, once we get that information, it will be shared publicly, but no district's accreditation will change. In the 23-24 school year is when district's accreditations will change. And so there will be a comprehensive school improvement cohort for the 22-23 year and one for the 23-24 year. And then we will have new data to present. Are there any questions of me at this time? Yes, ma'am. I'm gonna do my best to answer since I'm subbing.
No, okay, going back to 8, there data that shows state of where we are.
Yes. We have a graduating class that has just graduated. We have not received that from the state yet as to their percentage. We know what we calculated, but when we get our APR report, it will tell us the 4-year graduate, the 5-year graduate, the 6-year graduate, and now there's a 7-year graduation rate that we will be able to present. It is our hope that we make that presentation in October. We will have a truly comprehensive view of where we are, and we can present that trend data.
Okay, so
I believe we had 182 or 86 graduates. I would have to see what that cohort group was at the start. That we can get, I'm looking at Dr. Patton and Dr. Nichols, if they could get that for us this week, and we can make sure that the board has that. Yes, that data should also be available.
okay, so those types of updates, will kind of give an idea of where we are.
Absolutely. So I just want to make sure 2 things that we need to get to you this week. That's the 180-day follow-up. And we did present that at our state meeting, so that's readily available.
Okay.
And then the graduation rate for this year, based upon the cohort, the 4-year cohort.
Right. We know what our
I usually get a report from Tina Turnipseed over the weekend. I will try to get that from her. Mm-hmm.
So those are the main things. We already recognize.
Some of the schools individually recognize as a district. This being my first year, not as an excuse. I'm not sure what's been done in the past. I did do a challenge at Coke, and I said that the grade levels, third grade, fourth grade, and fifth grade, that exceeded their scores from the previous year would get a pizza party. That I did that, but I can't speak to what the schools are doing on their own. I do know that while I was at Coke, they celebrated the scholarship and achievement of their students. So I want to say assume, I would hope that something happens at all of our buildings as well. They have math and they have English language arts. And so the discussion the last time was about at Westview. And so they have a instructional coach in ELA and they have an instructional coach in math. And all of our buildings have instructional coaches. Dr. Nichols, I turn it back to you.
Wait, I have just a question. When we're looking at the content area data, can we change our colors to represent those colors that are, that they mirror those colors used by the state? Because I was bouncing back and forth and, you know, working with these every, I'm like, I was like, wow. And then I'm like, wait a minute, let me look at what it really says. So that it's not misleading or that it doesn't look as if we're misrepresenting.
That's a good question. I asked that question and I'm going to try to remember what Dr. Kennedy told me. Something about in the system, and I don't know if it's our system or the system where we get the data, the colors don't match up. So like in one, you could have the green and say blue, which is proficient in advanced, and then you look somewhere else and the green and blue is basic or below basic. We talked about if we could change it just for our presentation, and I don't know if we figured that out yet, but that is something that has come up among us as well.
Okay, because I was bouncing back and forth and trying to keep up. Okay.
It can be confusing.
I have a quick question as well. And I know you're new, so maybe you don't answer this, but with respect to the graduation rate, indicated for the four-year graduation rate for 2021, which was a year that wasn't representative of prior years, but I was just out of curiosity, does anyone have any sense of what the graduation rates have been historically over the last 4 or 5 years?
We presented that to the state as well. It's been in the 80 and 90 percentile range.
Okay.
And so this was a big drop for us, a dramatic drop. And so it is our hope that with the graduates we had this year, we'll see it go back up. But this was a significant drop because I think we had like 85.5%. And at some point, it was always in the 80s or the low 90s up until this year. But we can get you that too. What we can do for our new board members and for all of our board members, if you want, we made 2 presentations to the state. And in that, we give our achievement data. We do a lot of breakdown on graduation rate and those other things that we are doing as well. We can make sure that you have that.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Dr. Nichols.
At this time, I will provide you with a status update for effective instruction. Slide 18, please. There are 4 goals listed under effective instruction. The focus of all 4 goals is to improve student performance in all 4 areas and to increase the implementation of research-based strategies in the classroom setting. Slide 19, please. The focus for goal 1 is to increase performance for scholars for all the core areas. Performance data indicate that improvement is needed in this area. 3 strategies written on the goal 1 include the following. Strategy A focuses on building job-embedded professional development. Principals and instructional coaches provide job-embedded professional development during late start Wednesday. Topics of discussion include discussing students' work, student-centered coaching, instructional best practices for math and literacy, and the data team process. In addition, the district staff receive professional development regarding best practices for literacy, math, and science, via external partners. This work is evidenced via the kick-up system, agendas, and coaching laws. Strategy B focused on the implementation of professional learning communities in the data team process. In addition, school districts and school administrators and instructional coaches receive training regarding the use of data and implementation of the data team process. Also, the data team process is implemented weekly at the building level. School teams review students' work, discuss students' performance, and instructional strategies that will promote the acceleration of student learning. This work is evidenced via building level agendas and the kick-up system. Strategy C focuses on providing intervention support and using data to improve student performance. Also, intervention and supports are provided for scholars via Freckles level literacy intervention, small group instruction for math and literacy, SSD teachers, reading specialists, and instructional assistants. In addition, student data is reviewed by administrators and teachers via the use of Renaissance Star 360 system. This work is evidenced via building level meeting agenda, performance data, instructional schedules, and observation data. Slide 20, please. The focus for Goal 2 is to improve the reading performance of scholars. Performance data indicates improvement is needed in the area of reading. Spring Renaissance benchmark data indicate that 86.8% of our scholars are reading below grade level. 4 strategies are written for Goal 2 to include the following. Strategy A focuses on providing additional touches for scholars for tiers 2 and 3. Reading specialists and Read 180 teachers provide additional intervention support for scholars at the elementary and secondary levels daily. In addition, special school district teachers provide weekly targeted instructional support for identified scholars for grades KG through 12. Also, reading specialists use level literacy intervention kits to provide support for scholars daily. This work is evidenced via building instructional schedules, building level observations, student intervention plans, and performance data. Strategy B focuses on the implementation of the balanced literacy program. In addition, a 90-minute literacy block is implemented at each elementary school daily. Also, teachers and administrators receive professional development regarding effective and implementation of the balanced literacy program each year via the Missouri Reading Initiative. This work is evidenced using a kick-up system and building level observations. Strategy C focuses on dyslexia screening. Per the state mandate, all scholars in grades KG through 3 receive dyslexia screening 3 times a year via the use of Camera. Identified scholars in grades 4 through 12 are screened if the parent or teacher makes a request. Also, district staff receive the mandatory 2-hour dyslexia professional development training this school year. This work is evidenced via the kick-up system, Fiscal system, Mirror, and Fontes and Pinnell assessment. Strategy D focuses on improving additional reading support or providing additional reading support for scholars via the use of the librarian. School librarians provide additional intervention support for scholars in the area of reading weekly. Also, elementary librarians have received MRI training.
Before you go to the next slide, I have a question. In all of this, where does vocabulary play a role?
So vocabulary is a part of the 90-minute reading block. Teachers can teach that during their small group instruction. They also can put vocabulary activities at school centers.
Do they test vocabulary words?
Teachers can create their self-assessment to test those assessments.
Do they though?
Well, that's monitored at the building level. It's the expectation that they do.
I would like to know that because this summer I have listened, I've been reading to students, and a lot of them, and they've been grades first, I'm going to say first through 5, and they had no idea what vocabulary was. So that's concerning me because if you don't know what the word means, you can't excel in that subject. So that's really important. I would like to know how much vocabulary testing is done.
Yes, ma'am. And also word work is part of our literacy process of the 90-minute block. The students do engage in word work. Also moving forward, as Dr. Adams indicated, we're going to be writing that into our comprehensive student improvement plan. We did share with the school administrators at the retreat a couple of weeks ago that our focus for next year for the entire district will be around vocabulary. So we're going to be closely monitoring the vocabulary piece, and we have resources also will be made available for our staff and students around vocabulary. Our new benchmark literacy series also has a word study and vocabulary component embedded in it.
Cause I just wanted to say, and I'm not, I know people work hard, but I talked to some of the people at the MSBA conference that we were at. And a lot of emphasis is put on the students understanding and utilizing vocabulary.
Yeah. So that would definitely be a big focus, entire district focus across all content areas. And then we'll be reaching into the new comprehensive improvement.
Thank you.
Strategy D focuses on providing additional reading support for scholars. Oh, I just said that one. Sorry. Slide 21, please. The focus for goal 3 is to increase the use of research-based instructional strategies. Instructional around observation data indicate improvements in the areas of questioning and student engagement. Today, several professional development opportunities have been provided to district staff regarding the implementation of effective research-based strategies for various content areas via teacher, selected PD, job-embedded PD at the building level, and district-level PD. In addition, support is provided for new teachers via the Mentor and Beginning Teachers Program. This work is evidenced via the kick-up system, lesson plans, mentor logs, and classroom observation. Slide 22, please. The focus for goal 4 is to increase the math performance of scholars. Performance data indicate that improvement is needed in the area of mathematics. 2 strategies were written for goal 4 to include the following. Strategy A focuses on providing additional math support for scholars. Teachers provided intervention for scholars via the use of the Freckles program and small group instruction for math. Also, instructional assistants and SSD staff provide additional intervention support for scholars daily. This strategy evidenced via instructional schedules, performance data, and student intervention plans. Strategy B focuses on the implementation of the guided math process. In addition, district staff receive tiered professional development on the implementation of research-based instructional strategies for math. Also, instructional building schedules support the implementation of the guided math process. This work is evidenced via district observation data, instructional schedules, and the kick-up system. In closing, recommended steps for improving student performance under the area of effective instruction include the following recommendations. Implementation of literacy labs in KG3 to provide intensive intervention support for students in the area of reading. Second, provide 24/7 online tutoring services in support for district scholars to include English language support and Spanish via the paper tutoring platform. Third, take a deeper dive into the content-specific professional development for teachers via the support from curriculum coordinators and external partners. Fourth, engage in collaboration with solution trees and efforts to improve school performance in all schools across the district. These are some of the recommendations that will be written into the upcoming comprehensive school improvement plan as we move forward next year. Do you have any questions at this time? That concludes my presentation for effective instruction. Yes, our preceding data show the results for that. Looking at the data, it indicates that we did not meet any of those goals. Based on the data report that Dr. JPA provided, we did not meet any of those. But we can definitely add that in each one of those sections. Any other questions?
Are there, within the curriculum, strategies and methods that are used across the board, district-wide? Say, for instance, if we're focusing on a particular standard and we're saying we want to cover it, we know that in our district, we're struggling with identifying themes. And so are we, in the curriculum, is it stated so that we're making sure that it's covered across the board in every school, that this is the district, and like our curriculum focus for this unit is to focus on these skills and that, so that it, I guess what I'm saying, so that every teacher is doing the same thing. Maybe not teaching the exact same lesson, but covering the same material, making sure that our students are getting help in the standards that where most heavily we need the help.
Yes, I'm glad you asked that question, Dr. Coleman. Actually, our understanding by design units are aligned with the state priority standards. We update them every year according to state recommendations. So if you take a look at some of our units, you will see that it is the expectation that everyone teaches those identified skills across the board. So you should be able to walk in any school in grade 3 and see the same focus. Like you said, it may be taught a little differently, you may see different activities, but everyone should be, you should see them teaching the same units at the same time. It also includes pacing charts, progression charts, so that you and parents and even teachers and students can see where they should be and how they're pacing. We also include a time frame for staying on a particular unit. So if you walk into a third grade classroom and you see a teacher is still on a certain skill and they should be in a different unit, that's a red flag for us school administrators to have a conversation, find out why they're still there. But yes, our curriculum is definitely designed in that manner.
Do you see the curriculum evident in lesson planning? So is lesson planning evident across the board? Is it recommended at all schools, or is it, oh, we don't do those over here? Yeah, they do them over there, but we, you know, are we all turning in lesson plans that are showing that we are following the pacing guide, following the curriculum?
Yes, ma'am. So lesson plans are monitored at the building level by principals. So principals during the weekly data team meetings, they can have their dialogue with teachers. They should be bringing their lesson plans to data teams and having those discussions. So it is an expectation in the district. Everyone should be utilizing the same template and submitting lessons.
Thank you.
I have a question,
Yes, sir.
but it sort of goes back to an earlier part of your presentation. If you could go back just a bit. I don't know if it's slide 8 or 7, but it's the slide dealing with the Missouri School Improvement Process measures. It was the section that dealt with the graduation rate, but underneath the graduation rate, there's a section that deals with college and career readiness.
Well, that's the part that Dr. J.P.
Okay.
presented.
Okay. I just wanted to understand again whether what I see here is somewhat anomalous because of the hybrid year that 2021 presented, or whether this is something that is.
This is not, as I indicated earlier, you're on slide 8 with the graduation rate.
Yes, ma'am.
It is usually significantly higher than what we have here. And this is based upon when you see 4 years, that's a particular cohort. Students that start together and finish together, but you also take into consideration the graduation rate, the transient population, and the dropout population. And for this year, that year that's listed, the 2021 school year, was the lowest it has been in the data that I've seen.
Okay. So my question was with respect to the college and career readiness portion of that slide, where it says the assessment is 10.2% of students are at or above state average.
That's the students who took the assessment. At this point, I'd have to follow up with Dr. Kennedy to see how many students took that assessment. That goes back to the question that Dr. Ahmad Elliott asked about knowing those numbers. Right now, I don't know the number of students who took the assessment, but I do know that 10.2% of them. I don't know if this is the EOC in the course exam. I'm not sure what cluster. I would have to follow up and get you that response.
Oh,
Okay, then that would mean that 10% of the students who took it were at or above grade level.
I see. All right. I thank you.
There are no more questions. Okay, so at this time, Mrs. Mott will come forward to provide you with an update for curriculum assessment on behalf of Dr. King.
And that would be slide 23, I believe. Okay, Good evening, Special Administrative Board, Superintendent Dr. Britt Adams, colleagues and community. As a proud new member of the Curriculum and Assessment team, I am here to present the Curriculum and Assessment strand of the School Improvement Plan. Now, the Curriculum and Assessment strand has 3 goals attributed to it. The first goal states that we will increase the Missouri Performance Index in each core area, namely ELA, math, and science, as measured by the annual performance report. Now, you'll notice, as was stated before, this is not current data because in 2020, the map was not administered, and in 2021, DESE decided not to use it for accountability purposes, so therefore it was not factored in. But once we receive the data from DESE, this goal will be updated. But regardless, our number 1 goal is to increase student achievement. Goal number 2 states that we will utilize a standard-based grading system, and goal number 3 states that we will engage students in monitoring and tracking their learning progress. Next slide, please. So, under goal 1, there are 4 strategies that we are implementing to achieve our primary goal of increasing student achievement. The first strategy states that we will develop and revise the curriculum and assessments and make sure they were aligned to the Missouri Learning Standards. The current reality of that particular strategy is that the foundational pieces are in place for ELA, math, science, and social studies, and we are also currently completing the related arts curriculum, meaning for music, art, and PE. We're doing that this summer. In addition, we have revised the standards, the priority standards, to ensure, and this goes back to what I think you were just talking about, to ensure that our teachers are focusing their instruction on the power standards, meaning the ones that the students absolutely need in order to progress to the next grade level. Okay. Also, we have added some ELA, math, and science resources, and we are providing ongoing professional development to the teachers so that they can effectively use these resources and make sure that they are also aligned to our district curriculum. And then finally, we have added a couple staff members, myself and Ms. Tiffany Hunter, to the curriculum and assessment team to aid in this work in reading, math, and science. And we also want to emphasize that although the foundational pieces are in place for the curriculum and the assessments, this is definitely an ongoing process because the implementation of the curriculum is data-driven. Okay, so strategy B states that we will work with the ESL teachers, meaning the English as a second language teachers, to develop a more robust program. And the current reality on that strategy is that we are in collaboration with the ESL teachers to improve the program. The third strategy, strategy C, states that we will work with the ACE directors to improve student achievement. And the current reality on that is that we meet with them once a month, but that we have a lot of work to do with that. The fourth strategy states that we will align the high school courses and instruction to the ACT expectations to help increase the student composite score. And our current reality on that strategy is that the ELA ACE standards have been shared with the English 3 and 4 teachers as of right now. So next slide, please. So to address goal 2, which states we will utilize a standard-based grading system, the strategy that we have wanting to implement was to create a report card committee and then collaborate to develop a standard-based report card. Well, our current reality is that we do not have a standard-based report card, and the district curriculum is not aligned to the standards. Excuse me. But now that we have completed those foundational pieces in the curriculum, ensuring that they're aligned to the Missouri Learning Standards, and we have completed common formative assessments for all units, all grade levels, across all content areas, we are now prepared to develop a report card committee this coming school year, 2022-2023, in the beginning of the school year, to start that work. Next slide, please. So the final goal in this strand states that students will engage and monitor their learning, okay? And the strategy that we have in place for that is that the district will provide resources and support to the students with district resources that they can track their learning progress in math and ELA. And so our current reality is some of the resources we have shared with the students are classroom data walls, access to their student portal, onto Simpanel reading charts for elementary, Read 180 and Systems 44 for secondary students to track their reading level, Renaissance Star, ELA, and MAP reports, and then finally Freckle, which is our intervention piece that's on the Renaissance platform, and that enables the students to establish goals and track their progress in ELA and math. And that concludes my presentation of the strand. Do you have any questions? Yes.
When I read this, I thought maybe I didn't understand.
Okay.
Does this really mean that there was no standard report card system? I mean, how do you?
We have report cards. They're just not standard based.
Okay, I don't understand.
Okay, a standard base means that it'll have a standard, and then it measures the proficiency with it. You know, are they? Does anybody else want to help with that? But it's just a matter of how much mastery do you have with that particular standard? Instead of having A, B, C, D, E, you know, it's how proficient are they with that particular standard? Their mastery of the
That's what
standard.
I was in school 100 years ago. Okay, so we just got A, B, C, D, E.
Right, and this is a new thing, but a lot of districts are doing it, and we're trying to do that. And now that we have our curriculum aligned to the Missouri Learning Standards and common formative assessments aligned to the Missouri Learning Standards, now we are equipped to do that. Did you want to add?
Yeah, so what Ms. Mott just said is true. So instead of having a report card that indicates a student received an A and just say science, so the report card would be drilled down more with specific skills for each content area, and it would have a proficiency scale, letting you know where the student is according to that specific skill. That's the work that we're going to be moving forward with. I think you heard Dr. JPA talk about competency-based learning. So actually, it's a new expectation by DISI for NCIP 6. So a lot of the school districts will be now moving in that direction to create standard-based report cards. So it's something new. It's a new expectation. And also, you're probably going to hear more about it when Ms. Sharp comes up in a minute. But Dr. Pruitt Adams has been talking about the competency-based piece and competency-based learning. That's something we're going to be also including into our new comprehensive school improvement plan as we revise it for the next school year. So it's a new DISI expectation.
Okay, so that's from the state. We have no options on that. So I'm wondering then, does that mean that we can maybe tailor our learning expectations a little different in our district versus some other district maybe?
Yes, so actually our learning expectations are already aligned in our curriculum with the Missouri Learning Standards. So if you go to DISI's website, you see and read a lot about the Missouri Learning Standards. So all of the work that we do in our district and actually across all schools in the state are aligned with those Missouri Learning Standards. So each district may tailor it a little differently. So we do have the wiggle room, but the expectation is that we do it. So it may look a little different from school district to school district.
So if I can paraphrase, what I hear you saying is, and this maybe helps to make it clear, that if the standard is that the student will analyze the text and use details from the text to make inferences or draw conclusions based on what the text states implicitly or what's implied or what's directly stated. So this report card would say that the student is mastered, proficient, or maybe below level in making those inferences and conclusions based on what the text says or implies.
Yes, that's correct. And we will have a proficiency scale. Well, we will be working with the administrators and teachers in the district to create our own proficiency scale based on Missouri learning expectations. And then that will go into a standard-based report card. So a lot of work will go into that. Not something that's going to be done overnight or even in 1 year, but we'll be taking those baby steps to create that and start that process.
So if a student were to transfer, this could actually be a good thing, transferring from district to district. If all districts are using this system, then as an educator, as counselor, the teacher, and placing that student in another class, you can readily see, okay, this student is proficient in this, or this student is advanced in this. And that might even help in where you place students in classes and then finding out the help that they need.
Yes, so versus giving them assigning a grade level, you'd be looking more at specific mastery of skills, and proficiency in certain skills.
And it's not as subjective, because A is not always A.
Yes,
Yeah, there you
right.
go.
That's correct.
Well,
Can I?
what's the difference in the teacher saying, okay, she reads and comprehends what she says, like under the, used to be like a comment section. I'm going, just break it down. Used to be like a comment section that she can read, she can dissect the frog, she can dissect the worm. I mean, what's the difference between those kinds of comments than the more advanced, let me call it, advanced way of doing it?
So the comments with specific competency-based skills will be more specific. It won't be generalized, like saying a student got an A in science. So as a parent, you may be like, well, what does the A in science mean? Like, what particular skills did they master or they need to work on? So on a proficiency report card, you're going to see a specific skill. Like, for instance, reading, instead of saying a scholar is having issues with reading or comprehending, it's going to give you a specific skill. The scholar is having some issues with blending letters E and L or something like that. So you're going to have specific versus just general statements.
Excuse me, can I just interrupt? If anyone in here is driving a silver Cadillac, it's on the parking lot and the lights are flashing.
Yeah, I spent all afternoon at the dealership.
Oh.
Thank you. Thank you.
At the high school, they do offer ACT prep work, and sometimes they do collaborate with universities. I know in the past, we've had students come in on Saturdays to prep, and they also had services for parents to help scholars prepare for the ACT and apply for the ACT. Everyone is suspected yesterday. Well, that process is done at the high school. Ms. Nave is not here, but I can write that down and make sure that we provide you feedback regarding it.
Our question, the standard space report card, is that sort of becoming the norm for school districts now?
Yes, that's actually becoming a norm, not just in the state of Missouri, but across the country. They're moving towards standard space report cards. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe I won't.
The technology strand has two goals for it. One, integrating and upgrading the infrastructure to ensure that technology is available for students, and implementing computer science education in grades K through 12. The first goal has 9 strategies: to provide interactive boards for the classroom and to replace non-functioning boards. When we came into the district, there were approximately 30-some boards, but they were 12 plus years old, and most of them were non-functional. To date, we have replaced or added 361 smart boards to the district. Upgrade the wireless network in schools. In the beginning, there were 4 access points. There was wireless at the high school and at central office. That was it. To date, we've installed 197 switches and 581 access points. ensuring that wireless is throughout the entire district. Increasing the district's internet connection. Initially, we had a 10 meg connection. There were complaints about latency, things not working or being very slow continuously. To date, we have a 5 gig connection, and it is 500 times faster than what we had initially. Installing a new phone system. 2 years ago, we had a 20-plus-year-old phone system, NEC. It was holding its own, working fairly well. Today, we have installed 834 phones, and they're all capable of receiving 911. So if anyone picks up a phone and dials, they know immediately. Police know, firemen know where they are being called from. It's a VoIP system. It mainly uses the internet, not hardwired. Ensuring that students are one-to-one with Chromebooks. 4 years ago, we had 70 Chromebooks at Coke that Dr. Fields purchased through a grant he received. To date, we have 10,000 Chromebooks. Now, that was done through E-rate, ESSER, and GOB funds. So we've all worked collaboratively to get that accomplished. Implementing one-to-one staff laptops. We have ordered a new laptop for every staff member that has to work at home. They will be delivered. They're being inventoried and tagged now, but they will be delivered before school starts. Upgrading the district's data center. That's my wish list. We put out an RFP, and we plan to install new servers, new storage, and start using cloud storage. Now, what I don't have on here, and we found that in MSIT 6, there's a real need for data security, and we have to implement a plan for that, and that's on our wish list too. I think Dr. JTA is going to make sure we do that. Absolutely. To date, we've installed numerous infrastructure upgrades, and we continue to look for other things that need to be done. And as we do and come forward with our wish list, we will make sure that the board is fully aware. Goal 2, implementing computer science education in grades K through 12. We decided 2 years ago that we were going to go with Project Lead the Way. So we're going to implement Project Lead the Way. As you know, it's already at the high school and the 2 middle schools. Currently, we have received a grant, 9 grants for the elementary schools. And we will discuss that a little further down, but I can't help but tell you about that now. We've also been instructed by Dr. Nichols to apply for the Early Childhood Center. We've done that, but I haven't received word about that one yet. Ongoing, I will continue to work with Dr. Joyner, who's our Project Lead the Way coordinator for the district, because he was the first teacher for Project Lead the Way, to make sure that Project Lead the Way is implemented with fidelity in the district. Any questions?
I have one quick question. I know you probably talked with your colleagues from other districts. Where do we match up, you think, surrounding districts for us?
Interesting question. I'll be honest with you. I came from another district, and we are now on par. When I arrived here, we didn't have very much, but I think we're pretty much on par. I know with, I may say St. Louis Public, but that's where I came from. And I think by us continuously making sure we get additional technologies in, I think we're doing fine. And the thing that what E-rate did last year, when they allowed us to purchase those almost 4,000 Chromebooks, and then we received so many from libraries, we purchased with GOB funds. That went a long way to getting us far. But we are now one-to-one as far as students needing Chromebooks. So we're on par. We can always get more though. And I can assure you I will be begging for more. Yes, what we have is we've located a company person who's been working with us to improve efficiency in the district. And they're looking at technology. We're looking at the technology site, but it's really all across the board. HR has some project needs. They come to mind. Finance has some issues. So they're working with various departments throughout the district. Now, I do know that Ms. Sharp did several surveys, and she shared some of that with me, but I'd have to get back. Okay, but I know we're always surveying. Before we purchased the Chromebooks, we sent out surveys to determine what people had at home, what they needed, et cetera. So there are a number of surveys that we've sent out. So I'd have to get, if there's some additional information you need, I'd have to go back and look at those individually and get back with you. Yes, I know. Yes, they do. The project leads the way computer class. I know we do at the high school, the engineer, and also at 2 middle schools. It's Howard at Central and the other lady named at Westview. But yes, they do also.
I just wanted to commend you because, we have come a long way as far as technology is concerned. So I just want to publicly thank you and your staff for all the hard work that you all do because you have a very small staff. So I just appreciate all the things that you guys have done.
Thank you.
Being here when you came,
Yeah.
and hearing it, I was like, oh my goodness, but to hear this now is very refreshing. So I just want to publicly thank you.
Thank you. And if I may, thank my staff because whatever I ask them to do, they do it wholeheartedly. And I know because I told you, but the new ones may not know. But over the Christmas break, I requested that they all come in because we wanted to get those Chromebooks out, and they came without fussing too much.
I have a couple of questions. One, regarding equity, is there a process in place that we're making sure that, okay, it's wonderful that we're one-on-one Chromebooks. That's absolutely amazing, and we need that. But as far as the equity is concerned, does the district help to provide maybe hotspots for those students who don't have access to internet? Okay.
Yes.
And is there a limited amount of access that they have, or is it 24 hours?
No, they haven't. But in fact, with the funds that I received from E-rate, part of the requirement was that they had to go home. So when we did the survey, I think it said that only 20. Please don't make me make up something because I'm not sure what those. But that was why I had to use that as my baseline for being able to audit. I had to send that in to tell them these are the people who come back to me and say I don't have internet access at home. So when we sent those to them, they had to go home. They can't stay in the school, even though principals have called me and said, can't we keep them here? No, they have to go because if they do an audit and come into your building and those devices are in your building, we will have to pay that money back.
And so with that being said, the end of the year, students transferring, graduating, whatever the case may be, is there a process for getting those hotspots back so that we're not losing money and constantly buying new?
What we did, we sent out a communication to the principal saying if the student was leaving your school, you were supposed to get back those Chromebooks. And what we're supposed to do, in fact, I talked to a secretary today at Meadows, and she told me she has her devices in a room. And so what we'll start doing is going over, checking those out, making sure they'll need updating, cleaning them, because when people turn their devices in, I won't even tell you. But so all of my team will get together and we'll go over and clean those up and make sure. So each school, as they receive it, they were supposed to store them in one place. And then when we go over, we'll take care of updating, cleaning, and doing what these students. So that when the next student comes, you don't receive a raggedy, that's not clean device. You have something that you want to take home and use.
And one more question in regards to that. What is the process for repairing and replacing broken Chromebooks? Because the students break their Chromebooks. And is there any student accountability? Are they fined? Do they pay a portion of it? I know that in some districts, the first time you break the Chromebook is $25, and the second time is $50, and so on. Is there some accountability as far as taking care of and repairing and replacing them?
We discussed the fines for a while. And we never did come to a consensus, but I do know that some schools, I gave them a list. For instance, if they break the screen, that costs for us to repair. And so schools know what they cost. All of my guys are Dell certified. We can repair all the Dell Chromebooks and make any repairs that need to be done. Now, some of the devices that we receive from the library, the Samsung, sometimes when people purchase Chromebooks, they purchase the least expensive ones.
Right.
And so we were not able to repair those. But the Dells that we are purchasing now, we can repair ourselves, and they do it. Now, the Lenovo's that we initially purchased, I have a company that comes in to help with those repairs. So we do what we can, and we try. Some of them we know that can't be repaired. We're gonna have to scavenge them. That means we're gonna try to pick them apart, maybe use the screen from that one or use the keyboard. So that's what we try to do too. But we do have a process.
Yeah, but there's just, I don't want to say no accountability, but students and if the families are not
I know.
held accountable, that's.
Yes.
Okay.
I know.
All right.
Any other questions? Next, we're going to hear from Dr. Patton, who's going to discuss collaborative cultures.
Good evening, everybody. So I want you to know that as all of these questions have been asked, Tracy Nave, our high school principal, is blowing up my cell phone with all of these percentages, and she's giving me all this information. And then she finally said, "Woo, child, I need to be there." So I offered to send someone to pick her up, but she declined. So let's see. Oh, there we go. So the collaborative cultures piece is responsible for the social, emotional, mental health support of the district. So that's what my department is focused on. So we have a couple of goals that we have set up. The first one is in line with everyone else's goal, which is ELA and math, because of course academics is our goal. So one of the ways that we said we would support this goal is by creating effective partnerships with families, working with our community, with businesses, and bringing in partnerships that would help support them. We would also make sure we are communicating with all of our parents consistently, and then we would develop data team meetings within each school to help support the academics, behavioral, and attendance rate of our students. So one of the ways that we have accomplished that is we've hired a family engagement specialist that was employed last year. She has had this year 8 parent advisory council meetings. Our own board president, I think, attended a couple of them, as well as having motivational speakers for our students, doing adult education nights, developing budgets, helping our families develop budgets. We had family bingo night and family literacy night. So we are engaging our families in a lot of ways. And I had never seen, I have to say, a bingo night virtually, but it was quite entertaining. We had like 60 families on, and they got involved too. Little argument started, but that's all good. Also, our buildings have also had a number of family events, both virtual and in person. And hopefully, as we see the COVID infections decreasing, we will see more of those at the building level. Our own Director of Communications, Ismail Sistrunk, as well as Tina, they make sure that we are communicating with our parents with Inside the View, keeping our social media updated, our website, robocalls and emails. And so they are doing a very good job of making sure that our parents are informed. Also, at the building level, if there are issues with academics, behavior, or attendance, there are data team meetings that our teachers are holding with our building principals and the support staff within the building. And as for the 21-22 school year, we had a total of 46 I-team meetings. The I-team is the intervention team, and they come together to brainstorm how to support our students. Moving to goal number 2, which was the college and career readiness. So Dr. Miranda, you asked about updated percentages. The scores are not in yet, but I will get you those updated percentages as it compares to last year or even the year before that. Our strategy for supporting that is to ensure that there are counseling services to support our students in the areas of academics as well as social emotional. Our current reality is we had 162 students take our technical assessment, our technical skills assessment, which around the areas of culinary arts, early childhood, fashion, business, marketing. We've also given our advanced placement test this year to 10 of our high school students. Our counselors worked from the 8th grade through the 12th grade to develop the individual career academic plans for our students. And this is something that they follow as they go through middle school and into high school. It kind of puts them on a track for a particular area of study. Okay, and also when you look at our pre-AP, AP, and dual credit courses, we have over 200 students at our high school that are enrolled in those courses. I will get the percentage, Dr. Miranda, to you as well as everyone else. When you look at the percentages up above, I will tell you that due to COVID had a very huge impact, not only within Riverview Gardens, but across many school districts. The social emotional well-being of our students was a huge concern. The other piece to that is that many of our students had to begin working to help support their families. And so they were working to pay bills. So our high school team did a great job in helping to support them using the ACE program to help them get their high school courses completed, but also trying to help them keep a roof over their head. Goal 3 was related to increasing our attendance rate. Dr. Miranda, you talked about this. Oh, sorry. Thank you, Amber. Dr. Miranda, you talked about this. 35% of our students are attending 90% of the time. So that was something you specifically asked. And if you compare that to the percentages above, you'll see that it is much lower, and we have not reached that goal. But as I said, a lot of our students, when we were completely virtual, it was difficult getting them on. We struggled with that. We were homeschool coordinators going to their homes, knocking on doors, trying to get them to engage in learning. And so you will see that there is a decrease, but we are not giving up. We are determined to bring our students back to education so that they understand the importance of education and how that moves them forward in their life. Talked about that. I talked about IT meetings. Also, part of ensuring students are at school is making sure they're healthy. So we've had school immunizations throughout the school year. We've had health services such as dental, eye, and clinics for hearing. So we want to keep them at school. This summer, we will have 4 school immunization events for our students to get school shots to make sure that they are prepared to start school. And then our final goal is centered around the discipline. We are wanting to decrease our referrals by 5%. I went back to 2018-19 because that was the last year that we had numbers for, well, when I did this report, let me say that, we had numbers because if you remember in March of 20, we went out on COVID, and then last year, students were not in. So we do see a decrease in the suspension events, although we are not happy with the number that we see. We had, between February and May of 1920, we had 1,500 suspensions. And if you compare that to the same time this school year, you'll see that we had 1,100 suspension events. If you look at the students that were suspended in February and May of 1920, we had a little bit over 1,300. And the same time this school year, we had a little bit over 1,000. So we are decreasing, but not at the rate that we want. So last year, or this school year, if you will recall, we brought in trauma-informed practices to support our teachers and our school community in understanding our students. And as we move into next school year, we will move into restorative practices at our secondary level, both middle schools and the high school, as well as the elementary school. And we are hoping that this gives our students an opportunity to remain in school, but also kind of to repair the damage that was done. And so we'd like to work with them to keep them at school because as we know, we have to increase our attendance, decrease our suspension, and students learn when they are at school. So that concludes my section of the CSIP plan. Are there any questions? Ms. Mario?
I wanted to know if there is consistency at the schools, at all schools, and I'm hoping that this, what you all do next year, will cover this. So a kid can get, let's just say a student gets suspended for something at this school, but at that school, he may not have gotten suspended for it. So I'm just hoping that there is some consistency in what can get a student suspended. Because I know of an incident where a student had hurt his foot and he had on, I guess they were sandal-like shoes, and he got sent home about that. Whereas another person would have asked more questions or whatever. Another teacher said, well, he shouldn't, I wouldn't have suspended him if he's at my school. So, I'm just wondering if you have consistency and the rationale as to why students get suspended.
Yes, ma'am. So this morning I met with both middle school principals and the high school principal as it relates to the restorative centers that we want to embed in our secondary schools. And there will be consistency on how a student gets to that. What should have been done previous to them being in the restorative center? What should be done before they are suspended as well? So I can't actually tell you there is consistency. I can tell you that we are working to develop consistency across the board. Yes, ma'am. So Dr. Miranda, so the 1334 are students, individual students that were suspended. Yes, those are people. And then the percentage above are the events. So like I could have been suspended 4 or 5 times, but that second line is the number of students within our school district of 5,300 students that were suspended. And that's a great question. We do have that data, but I don't have it in front of me, but I can get that for you. Yep. Are there any other questions? Okay, Miss Amber White, a principal of Moline, will present for leadership and accountability.
Microphone was really low. Good evening. Good evening. I am presenting to you this evening in place of Miss Elizabeth Austin, the Assistant Superintendent of Leadership and Accountability. So I won't attempt to speak for her, but I will attempt to kind of share the leadership perspective. The good news is these are the same 4 goals that Dr. Patton just talked about, and there are fewer strategies, so I get to be faster than most people. So the first goal that I'm going to speak to is the goal related to improving MPI, related to MAP testing. So in terms of leadership, there are 4 specific strategies outlined from the Department of Leadership. The first is collaboratively working with human resources to ensure that building principals receive adequate professional development on the Missouri educator evaluation system so that we are effectively supporting and holding accountable teachers for their performance in the classroom with kids. Strategies B and C are related to collaboration with the district data team, collaborating with principals in terms of implementation of curriculum, aligning assessment practices, and implementing the data team process. And the final strategy, which I can't speak a lot to, but I have seen taking place a bit, is the development of a program that kind of creates viable administrative candidates from within our own pool of educators here. Currently, the reality as it related to this goal is there is collaboration with principals among various district departments. As principals, we work to come to a consensus about goals related to student achievement, working with departments like curriculum and instruction on curriculum assessment practices and data team processes. We have data teams taking place at every school. While those look a little bit different, those are taking place in every building. And I do know that Ms. Austin was meeting regularly with assistant principals, doing a book study in the attempt to make sure that our assistant administrators are also receiving professional development just as building administrators are. Goal number 2 is specific to college and career readiness. The data that is presented on this particular slide is outdated. The slide that Dr. Pruitt-Adams shared, slide number 8, had 2021 data, which was the most recent. So in terms of college and career readiness assessments, I believe that percentage was 10.2. AP or vocational credit, that percentage was 55.5. And the post-secondary placement, I believe, was 95 something. So the data on this particular slide is outdated. In terms of strategies for leadership and accountability, they will facilitate quarterly professional learning communities with administrators to discuss performance data and strategize next steps, as well as ensuring that master schedules, course pathways, things like that are really fostering students on their pathway to graduation. In reality, our secondary administrators are working their tails off on this, led by Ms. Tracy Nave. There's collaboration with not just the high school, but with the ACE program in terms of the schedule, analyzing transcripts, credit recovery, the thinking outside the box of that team of people is really working to improve that data. There is also a lot of work and conversations around revising school improvement plans, like Dr. Pruitt said, is going to take place using a variety of different forms of data. Goal number 3 is specific to attendance. Many of the things that Dr. Patton shared, I would say, are seconded in this particular goal. In terms of strategies, using the data team process to collaborate with principals from a district level, collaborating with us to see, drill down really to a specific student level, what's going on with the student, what's going on with the family, how can we provide support. So that happens from the district level down to administrators, and then administrative teams within their own building with counselors, social workers, teachers, anybody who knows the scholar and his or her family and can really give information, and then coming up with intervention plans for those particular students. The reality is the pandemic has had a significant impact on student attendance. In some instances, we ask kids to stay home, right? If you're coughing a lot, don't come. So we already know that we're going to take a hit on attendance, but the working families, parents' work schedules are very, very different. Now older students have to work. And we also have gotten out of the habit of what it feels like to come to school, to be on a regular schedule. And so it's really helping rebuild those habits for students and families. I think there's also been a lot of collaboration amongst the district level leadership with SSD in terms of working to create our multi-tiered systems of support, so we can address attendance in a similar way that we would address academics, right? Like, so kids that are really struggling are getting more intensive support. So that's been an ongoing process as well. And then the last goal, in terms of discipline referrals, I think Dr. Patton, she shared a little bit different data than is listed here. What you see listed here is for the most recent school year. It talks about the number of students who were suspended from school. So 1,123 students total for the year suspended. That was a total of about 2,300 out of school events. And as a total across the district, there were roughly 8,700 days lost to suspension. The specific strategy that's listed on here reflects school administrators analyzing attendance data to determine the cause. And when you really drill down some of the data, which a lot of it, somebody asked about, I think you asked Dr. Avant Elliott about IEP data. So Dr. Chad Lent from SSD provides a phenomenal data dashboard where you can click boxes and unclick boxes and the graphs change. And it's the most phenomenal thing for those of us that are data minded. But what it does is it helps us say, okay, so of all the kids that were suspended, what are they getting suspended for most often? And what you'll see generally most often is fighting. And of kids who are fighting, how many of those kids are suspended? So for us, it helps us as administrators say, okay, what do we do to address the fighting? And that's when what Dr. Patton talked about with restorative practices comes in. How do we help kids realize how their actions affect other people? Because the fighting goes beyond just what it does to you, but what does it do to you, to your family, to your community, things like that. The majority of our suspensions of these numbers that you're looking at are specific to grades 6 through 10. If you kind of take the elementary school kids out and the kids that are getting close to graduation, so they don't want to miss days of school, that's kind of where the bulk of the suspensions are coming in. Restorative practices training has already started and is going to continue into the next school year. And there has been a significant amount of collaboration, not just with building principals, but all departments that have presented this evening and helping ensure that we have the tools that we need to, what else do you do when kids are fighting? How do we stop the fighting, but also keep them in school? So that was fast. I am afraid to ask if there's any questions because I'm your guest speaker tonight, but are there any questions I can answer for you? Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. When referrals are entered into our student information system, the location is entered, the referring teacher is entered, the time is entered, and Dr. Lind's spreadsheet, when I say it's the most incredible thing ever, it really is. You can sort by location. Are more problems happening in the hallways? Are they happening in gyms? Are they happening in a certain teacher's classroom? So we really are able to, I mean, you could spend hours in front of it just clicking and unclicking to see how the graphs change. Hallway and transition times, bathroom times, times like that when kids are not directly supervised by adults in elementary levels, recess times, buses, all of those places, lunchrooms are really, really challenging for kids. So the best part of presenting tonight is getting to introduce the one and only Dr. LaVon Singleton.
Okay. Well, thank you for that introduction. Good evening to the Special Administrative Board, Dr. Pruitt-Adams, colleagues and community. I will present the Finance and Facilities section of the CSEP plan. We work collaboratively with the CNI team. Previous to now, the finance section had been taken out or removed from the CSEP plan. And so this year we added it back. And so we have 4 goals as well. If you notice, everybody's goal number 1 is the same, and that is to provide supports for ELA, math, and science. And so if you look at our goal number 1, the strategies are from a financial standpoint, support the learning process and instruction in schools by providing financial resources to each school. Strategy B says that we will support the management of the district funds at the school level and also provide a conducive learning environment for district students and staff. So our current reality, we're doing just that. Each of the individual schools have several pockets of money, if you will. One, they have an annual GOB budget, which we'll be presenting to the board tonight for approval. Relatedly, they also have a Title I budget, okay? ESSER funds, and we've talked about ESSER for the last several meetings. ESSER funds are certainly have been a blessing to this school district. We've been able to do some magnificent things to provide some support, PPE, personal protective equipment, sanitization materials. Through ESSER funds, as Dr. Larry mentioned earlier, we're also able to provide some hotspots and improve our one-to-one status. We also train principals and budget managers on the ability to run their reports. And we got a lot of feedback and data from the principals this year in terms of, the needs at their buildings. And so they were able to express that information as well. We talk about Prop R and Prop E, but Prop R is our capital improvement projects. And so we have done at least 25, we've completed 25 major projects around the school district that are very visible. These include rooftop units, abatement, parking lot repairs, and things of that nature. Goal number 2 is the district will continue to maintain fiscal accountability. There's that 15% minimum fund balance that we talk about. And so those strategies, what are we going to do to ensure the district maintains that fund balance? One, we're going to provide regular monthly reports to the SAB and the superintendent, and we do that on a monthly basis. 2, we will review and scrutinize requisitions and purchases daily to make sure that they align to CSIP. And so I think principals will tell you on a daily basis that, sometimes we say, no, not right now. And so those are things, and that's our job, is to make sure that what we're doing and what we're purchasing aligns to our comprehensive school improvement plan. Also, strategy C, in the federal programs department, we have what we call an 85% federal spend down. So Title I grants or federal grants allow you to carry over at least 15% of your funds if they're not all expended in one year. And so the remaining 85% have to be spent. And so our new federal programs director is certainly enforcing that, our assistant superintendent of leadership and accountability as well. So we meet collaboratively to make sure that schools are doing just that, meeting that 85% spend down requirement. So again, I've shared that information with you related to goal number 2. Goal number 3, the district will reduce the number of audit findings each year and provide sound fiscal management. We will focus on maintaining effective internal controls, doing periodic internal audits to make sure that purchases align to policy, and also provide fiscal training and development related to procurement. We have done all of these things this year. We are still working to reduce the number of audit findings. One of the things that we're going to do immediately once the new budget is approved is, prior to anybody even entering any new requisitions into the system, there's a mandatory training that finance is going to have, a lunch and learn, where we're going to sit down and make sure that everybody is on the same page in terms of budget accounts, in terms of making sure that they are aware of policy and making sure that we're following policy. And so these are things that we're trying to do to make sure that we can reduce the number of audit findings in the school district. In FY20, there were 5 findings. This past audit year, we got down to 4, and our superintendent has told us we have to get to 0. So we're going to do everything we can to get to that 0 number, but we're certainly going to do our best to make sure that our sound financial policies are in place. And then the last goal, by 2022, the district will use the ESSER 1, 2, and 3 funds and Prop B to support the learning loss in the school district. You've heard us talk a lot about learning loss, and that's what these ESSER funds are designed. In fact, ESSER 3 has a 20% mandate for learning loss. And so that's why we're doing things with Solution Tree to make sure that we're bringing those same services that the state is providing in district, in-house to the other 9 schools, so that everything is aligned and all of our students are getting some of these turnaround services. We've spent quite a bit of ESSER dollars. We've got quite a few ESSER dollars to go. ESSER 1 is totally complete in their spending. We're working on putting a huge dent in ESSER 2. And then ESSER 3, we're starting to chop away at that as well. And again, those funds are designed to make sure that we are supporting learning loss. We purchase Chromebooks, hotspots, online resources, PPE, sanitization, and a number of other measures that we have done in the finance department. That concludes my presentation for the CSIP related to finance. Are there any questions that I can answer at this time?
Yes.
Yes.
The federal spend down requirement, does that apply to ESSER funds?
No, no. So that is a Title I requirement. Remember, ESSER funds are temporary. We get title allocations every year, okay? But we want to spend 100% of our ESSER funds because we don't want to return any of those. But the 85% spend down requirement applies to title funds.
If ESSER funds are not spent, they have to return?
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Within what time frame?
So that all happens at the end. We don't know. I don't know what the state is going to do. The district had 3 pockets of ESSER funds. And so this last pocket of about $35 million, we have until September of 24 to spend those funds. I can tell you that the district will and should spend 100% of those funds. If there are some, monies left towards the end, we can always use it to reclass some salaries, some benefits, or things like that. So I really don't see us having any issues at all meeting those that 100% of spending those ESSER 1, 2, and 3 funds. Okay. If there are no other questions, I will, in conclusion, the Riverview Gardens School District is committed to the quality delivery of instructional services in a manner that is most efficient and produces the greatest student achievement. We're going to closely monitor those 6 core strands of leadership, curriculum and assessment, effective instruction, collaborative culture, technology, and finance at the district, building, and individual student level in order to make some informed educational decisions. It's our goal to make sure that all students experience many opportunities to be successful. So that concludes our presentation, and we'll go one last round to see if there's any questions regarding any of the material that we presented tonight. If not, oh, okay.
That's MSIP. Yes, there are some strands, standards and indicators under leadership. In fact, the first section, there's about 9, but that's for MSIP. And that does not have to be included in the CSIP plan. But as we prepare for MSIP 6, my team and I have already gone through and identified those things that are in place and those things that are not in place. Yes, there will be policies as well. My understanding right before I came, the district spent the majority of this year just getting some policies in place that were behind. And now we will begin to focus on policies tied to MSIP, policies that are just have not been reviewed in a while. So that's our charge for the upcoming school year.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for your patience. That was a little over an hour and 45 minutes. Before we move on, we got a hefty agenda. That's why I'm at. Keep going.
So, Madam Chair, I would like to recommend that you take a break and during that break, that this agenda is kind of looked at. Make sure there are some things for timelines. And that. But I'm not going to be here 11, 12 o'clock.
We're not going to be here till 11 to
We have
12.
items on here. If we knock down one item,
That is
we have
true.
several items for information. We have several items for discussion. We have budget, which is a big deal. And so I just want to keep that in mind.
I don't think we'll be here till 11 o'clock. I'm not going to tell you we won't be here till 9:30. I'm not going to even sit here and tell you that. But you're right, the items, what we as an administration will do next year is look at bringing forth those contracts that are up for renewal. When we know they're up for renewal, we can start bringing those in March, in April, in May. We don't have to wait until June to bring those. And so observing this year, I see that is what happened. And so we will adjust that for next year. That's why you see so many items, because there was a lot. That's why we had the special board meeting last week as well. But if you want, we can continue, and just as people need to step out, they can step out and move forward. It's up to the will of the board. I just know you've been sitting since 6:30, well, since 6 o'clock.
Take a break. We'll take a quick break.
How long?
I'll say 5 minutes. That's good enough. That's fine with me. So we will take a 5-minute break. We're back at 8:15.
Okay. Yeah, we can do that. Okay. And if they have questions, well, they really should have said. Yeah. That would be. Would it be easier for them to say, were there any questions? Did you receive any? If not, it would just- I do, because I'm about out.
Ms. Marguerite, I was reading something on rules of order, and it said ex-officio members can vote.
I never had one. Miss Long was
I
there.
had.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Yes, I.
I wrote that down.
I've heard of them.
We're gonna change the
We are
agenda
live.
so we don't
We
have-
are live. We are still live.
Everyone, we are still live. We are still live. So if you wanna hold conversation.
How are you doing? Desire? Yeah, no. Like. Good, good. Very good.
So that'll take us some time.
Thank you so much.
We are still live, so if you wanna have conversations, could you please step out?
No, it's streaming. It's not. You have 1 minute remaining.
Okay, now pass one over here.
Ms. Marville, if you want to resume the meeting.
Okay.
Oh, that's nice. Oh, very kind.
Thank you.
Oh, look, she's gonna be healthy and stuff.
You have 1 minute
Oh,
remaining.
very kind of you. Thank you.
Thank you. He's actually one. They just said we skipped it. He got
This is, yeah. Quite, Quite lengthy.
We're going to resume now. In the consciousness of time and also in respect to the individuals who have submitted items, I will introduce each item, make a reference to whether or not we received questions, and ask any board member who has a question to please send those questions. This is for the information items only. So the information item 6B was the Project Lead the Way grant. It was for information. It is in compliance to CSIP's Technology Goal 2 and Board Policy IGA. We did not receive any questions. If any board member has any questions relative to this grant, we would ask that you send them to me and we will forward those to Dr. Lair. Item 6C is chaos, keep healing, and overcoming struggle, which is discussion and information. This is an MOU. And so chaos was for a mindset for non-clinical and customizable social emotional learning tool. It is in compliance with collaborative cultures. And this MOU has been referred by legal. We did not receive any questions on this item. If there are any pressing questions, please send them to me and we will forward them to myself and Ms. Fields, and we will forward them to Dr. Pat. Item 6D, Students in Transition, 2021-2022 Expert Report. This is in alignment with the 2017-2018 lawsuit for our students in transition. This, what you received was in compliance with collaborative cultures of CSIP. The legal reference is the consent decree. The policy is IGBCA programs for homeless students. You have the report. We did not receive any questions. If you have any questions, please forward those to Ms. Fields or I, and we will make sure that they get to Dr. Pat. Item 6E, Facilities End of the Year Report, is also for information. This is just to give you a background of what has happened as a part of program evaluation. It is in compliance with CSIP Goal 1 under Finance and Facilities. And this item was for informational purposes. Again, we did not receive any questions on this item. If there are any items that have now come to mind, please send those to Ms. Fields and I, and we will make sure that they get to Ms. Green. Item 6F, Food Service Program Evaluation for school year 2021-2022. Also an information item is the program eval for food service. It's in compliance with CSIP collaborative cultures and policy IM. We did not receive any questions on this item as well. If there are any questions, you may, and this was presented by Ms. Shannon Abrams. If there are any questions, if you will forward them to Ms. Fields or I, we will make sure that Ms. Abrams gets them. Item 6G, RSG, June 22nd, COVID-19 protocols. I am so sorry. This item has been moved and it will be under the discussion item. And I believe that concludes all of our information items. And now we move to discussion. Item 7A is the fiscal year 22-23 proposed budget. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry, you are absolutely correct. Let me go back. Item 7A now is the Riverview Garden School District June 2022 COVID-19 protocols for scholars and staff. We will be asking action at the conclusion of this presentation be taken at the July 12th Board of Education meeting with regards to where the district moves forward with COVID-19 and our requirements. Making this presentation is Dr. Patton. This is in compliance with CSIP Goal Collaborative Cultures, Board Policy EBB, Communicable Diseases.
Dr. Jorlin, you need to do that all the time. Woo. All right. Good evening, board members, Dr. Jorlin, colleagues, and community. I stand before you once again. Each month I bring forth the COVID guidelines. So as you know, or you may or may not know, at this moment, the community levels within St. Louis County is high. It is described as high on the St. Louis County website. with that information, we will remain as mask optional. We will remain as mask optional. However, we will continue some of our other protocols such as cleaning and hand sanitizing and fogging our schools in our district. Hopefully, as we begin the 22-23 school year, we'll see a decline in our numbers. But at this moment, it's described as high. However, we will remain mask optional. Are there any questions? Thank you.
Item 7D, fiscal year 22-23 proposed budget. Knock on wood, final draft. This item is for discussion and approval later. It references policy DB annual budget, and you have the attachment. At the conclusion, it's recommended that the Board of Education approve the draft budget for the fiscal year 22-23, which later in this board meeting. Make this presentation is Dr. Lamont Singleton.
Good evening again. I won't be long, okay? We have seen this budget presentation on several occasions, so I will zero in right with the real meat of the presentation, okay? We've gone through the mission and vision. You all know this. We've gone through the value statements again, and all of these things should be a part of the budget. And so what I want to do is get straight to the handout that I provided everyone. There should be a 3-page handout that deals with 3 of the funds that we will be approving in the budget. So the very first page is the operating budget for 22-23 fiscal year. Our focus is the far right column that says budgeted 22-23. If you look at the revenues, and again, I've gone over those historically. Certainly, if there are any questions, you can ask them. But we went over the revenues, and so we're looking at next fiscal year budgeting about $78,540,123. Our budgeted expenditures for next year total about $76,471,614. This does include the raises that were approved at the previous meeting. This also includes a number of ESSER expenditures. Our turnaround vendor is in here, supplies, services, our utilities, our increase in benefits. All of that information is included in this final draft that we will be adopting here on this evening. Also reminded that transfer to Fund 4, last time I described that as when the capital funds, which we'll discuss, does not cover or does not have enough money to sustain the purchases, we do a transfer from Fund 4, the general fund, to cover whatever remaining purchases need to happen in the capital fund. So that information, that $1.6 million is a budgeted number. It will probably be higher. And so before the end of the fiscal year, we will come back to the board with a more realistic number on what that transfer will look like, okay? The final, the bottom portion of this deals with what we call our fund balance, okay? If you look on the far right at the very bottom, it says budgeted 22-23. So we're looking at opening the fund balance with about $17.1 million. With all of the activity that we described this year, bringing in the $78 million in revenues, spending out about $76 million. We're looking at ending the year with about a $17.5 million ending fund balance, okay? We see the change, the $382,000, that's the difference in those two $17 million numbers. And the fund balance for next year, we are projecting about a 22.88% fund balance. I can't reiterate enough, this is really because of ESSER dollars and what ESSER has allowed us to do. And so we certainly, once ESSER dollars are gone, we've got to, you know, for lack of a better term, we've got to go back to what a normal budget would look like without the additional revenues. So let me pause there and ask, are there any questions about the operating budget? The fund balance is really the meat of what this budget meeting is about. Policy says we have to meet that minimum 15% fund balance, and we're budgeting to exceed that for next fiscal year. Okay. The other two that I will go over very quickly, they have not changed since the original presentation 2 weeks ago. So the debt services, I explained to you that those are the various revenue sources that we have to take those funds and pay some of our debt. So our outstanding bond obligations. And so if you look to the hard right on the second page that says debt services fund, we're budgeting that we're going to receive about $4.3 million, but we're only going to spend about $3.3 million. And so we've got $1 million in excess that we're hoping to collect that'll take care of our debt services fund. Bottom line, we can pay our debt, okay? We can pay our bills. The last page is the capital funds project. For those who do not know what a capital project fund is, capital fund projects is where we spend or what we budget all of our purchases over $1,000. So any items, any one single purchase with a unit cost of over $1,000, we put in a capital funds project, okay? And so if we look and we see based on all the revenue sources, at the top, we're gonna receive about $7 million next year. But if you look at the expenditures, we're gonna spend about $8.6 million. This is where that transfer to on the first page comes in, because as I mentioned, the receipts are less than the expenditures, okay? And so we got to take some money from the general fund to cover the excess purchases here. And again, most of these purchases are going to be ESSER related. And so we're expecting full reimbursement for those purchases as well, okay? All the other information we have gone over, I have explained. I don't want to be redundant, but again, I know the real meat of the budget this year was, are we going to meet the fund balance? We've got a lot of activities planned with ESSER here. And so if there are any questions that the SAB may have, let me mention that some things that impact the budget, the assessed valuation, we hope that it continues to rise, okay? Because it means additional tax dollars for the school district. So that is something that we certainly hope to watch for in the near future as well. So we talked about Prop R. We know what it has allowed us to do, a lot of capital purchases. We've talked about Prop E, the passage of Prop E, April of last year. Those are the priorities. I can assure you that we are working diligently to meet those priorities as a result of Proposition E, okay? At this time, I will take any questions that we may have related to the budget.
I'm grateful that we got above the 15% for the capital fund balance. I think you were initially projecting that we might be somewhere in that range.
Yes. We were anticipating somewhere close to that. We knew we would be above the 15%. We didn't know how much, but yes, we're grateful that that we're able to hit that 15% fund balance and exceed it by some.
So this is a little bit beyond just the budget 2022-23. Now maybe you answered the question earlier. So as I understand what you said about ESSER and spend down, and there's really no way, or is there any way to put away some of the money that ESSER has given us for these last few years for the future?
I'd like to. I'd love to. But I'll tell you what we have done. What we have done really to capitalize on ESSER funds, so ESSER funds can be used to pay teacher salaries, okay? We can be used to reimburse the district, let me say that, for teacher salaries. So first of all, ESSER is a reimbursement fund. So you have to spend the monies in order to get the monies back. So there's no way you can put it aside because you have to have some source of spending it in order to get it back. So what we've been able to do as a district is to take a portion of what the general fund has paid in teacher salaries and say, because this qualifies for an ESSER reimbursement, then we will reimburse ourselves for $5–10 million of these salaries. So that's the way we've been able to kind of snatch the money back and put it in our coffers and let it build our fund balance. So that's what I'm cautioning the board. At some point, when we don't have those monies to reimburse ourselves, then the money that we do spend out would just be true cost, and there's no way to recoup those funds. So unfortunately, it's not a savings, it's a reimbursement. And that's just the way, that's the nature of the beast, it's how it rolls. Okay. If there are no,
Very quick question.
yes, ma'am.
Did you explain to us what tuition meant?
I did in a previous presentation. So there is a line item called tuition. And that tuition number there that you see, the majority of that is for our ACE program. And we talked about that in a previous meeting. So we've got about $1.2 million that we're budgeting for the ACE program. That may not be the true cost. I know that our superintendent and our assistant superintendent, Dr. Patton, and I, the three of us have been perusing this whole district over the last couple of weeks, finding some space to try to bring ACE in-house to cut that number down. But that tuition covers the ACE program for our alternative students, and also some additional funds that we have budgeted to pay for students who are residents in this district, but that have been displaced and they go to other districts. And so we have to pay those tuition costs as well.
I thought that program was over.
No, that's a transfer program. Okay. These are children. Dr. Patton, what do we call these? These are students in transition. Yes, these are students in transition. So these are our kids. And for some reason they have been placed, taken out of their homes. But because their domicile is in the Riverview Garden School District, we have to pay if they're attending schools elsewhere. And so it's not the transfer program, because of accreditation, but these are students in transition. Okay, all right. Any other questions related to the budget? All righty, thank you.
The next item, is item 7B, C now. Capital Project Fund Balance, additional transfer request not to exceed 1.4 million. This item is for discussion. It is in compliance with board policy DIAA fund balances. As a conclusion of the presentation, it is recommended that the SAB approve the additional transfer not to exceed 1.4 million from the general fund to the capital project fund to cover the anticipated deficit through June 30, 2022. This item is being requested for action later in this meeting. Dr. Singleton.
Okay, thank you. Good evening again. So to really make it plain, I just shared with you in the budget presentation that there's a $1.6 million transfer that's needed for next year. And towards the end of next year, let's say we spend actually $3 million. Well, then I come back to the board and say, hey, we approved 1.6, I need another 1.4 to get to that $3 million. Well, here I am for this year. So what I'm asking for is the board approved in August a $1.1 million transfer, okay? But our capital funds has exceeded that, okay? And when we talk about capital funds, we have purchased rooftop units, HVAC. We've done a number of those capital improvements across the district in this year's budget. So our expenditures in that capital funds project, if you look at the last meeting, we were at about and I can barely see that number. There we go. We were about $2.3 million. If you look at that negative number on your screen, it says $2,356,569 to deficit in capital funds. So the board has already approved the $1.1 million. I'm standing before you asking for an additional transfer not to exceed $1.4 million. I don't know that exact number today because we're still in that fiscal year. So as of Thursday, we will certainly have wiped out all of those outstanding bills and invoices and things. So I'm asking the board approve tonight an additional transfer of an additional $1.4 million, not to exceed $1.4 million, so that we can cover all of the expenditures in the capital funds project. Are there any questions for me at this time?
I remember Dr. Beck was here. You guys, the same month, you guys were talking about. Dr. Beck kept bringing up. You should remind Dr. Beck that there was a transfer company.
Yes, 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 and
Additional $1 million.
yeah, so the footnote at the bottom, and because, you know, we kept repeating it and kept repeating it again, every month I present this report, and and I think it's next on the agenda as well. You will see that negative number keep getting larger and larger, okay? The board approved $1.1 million. So when it got to the $1.1 million, we were covered. Now that we have exceeded that amount, this is the number that I would constantly remind Dr. Beck with, hey, don't worry that it's in the negative because we took action to approve it. So typically twice a year, we will do this at the beginning of the year and the end of the year, once we actually know what we spend in that fund.
The action we took was on the first meal, first 1 point.
Right. Now
This one is
right. So the act, and it's always based on a previous year. Okay. So the action we took on the first $1.1 million, you see we've exceeded that. So yes, this is in addition to that. We're asking for it. So it's a total of about $2.6 million total that we're asking to be transferred from the general fund to cover that deficit.
I guess my question is, how did we not see that coming?
Well,
It wasn't talked about. That's how this is the first time I heard of it today.
okay.
Additional 1.4 million.
So it's not that we didn't see it coming. We knew that this money would, this amount would grow, but understand these are ESSER purchases, okay? So these are, we've had quite a few emergencies at the high school where we have, you know, units have gone out. And so we have had to make emergency purchases. It's, you know, we can plan $1 to $2 million worth of activity in a year, but we've had a number of emergencies and unexpected things. We had to buy equipment that has been need to be replaced and things. So any cost, even computers, we bought computers that cost over $1,000. That fits into the capital fund. So, you know, it's always safe to assume even the 1.6 that we're approving this year, that we're going to exceed it, but we don't know how much we're going to exceed it. All we can do each month is watch that number and try to catch it before the end of the year. We may spend $5 or $6 million this year. This is a year that you're really going to see the capital funds project show some real serious expenditures. And so if you look at the last page of here, what we're telling you so far is that we're going to spend under the expenditures on the last page, $8.9 million. Is that 8.9? It's upside down. I'm sorry, 8.6. We're telling you that we have budgeted $8.6 million now. So you're going to see that number rise. We're telling you that we're going to bring in $7 million in revenue to cover it. So the only transfer we're anticipating is 1.6. Now, if we spend $10 million, then that's when I'm going to have to come back to the board and say, hey, you know, and a budget is just a snapshot at a point in time. But I think that, you know, we're probably going to exceed these numbers next year, knowing all of the purchases that we have to make and all of the projects that we have planned.
Am I correct? The challenge comes, I think you just hit it, when trying to predict, knock on wood, what things won't break down.
Yes.
And in all honesty, if you look at some of our buildings, they're in dire need of some renovations, some support. I mean, just to make the building safe and healthy. And so you don't know a lot of times what that's gonna cost because you have to go off of RFQs and so forth. And so I think what Dr. Singleton is saying, based upon our best calculation at this point in time, this is what we anticipate spending. However, depending on what happens, we may have to come back and say we need to make a change. Am I?
Absolutely. Yes. My words have left me tonight, but thank you, Dr. Pruitt-Adams. All right. So again, I'm sorry.
So the department, mainly like operations, they have a projection of We already know the lifespan of this. We're gonna have to replace it. So sounds like, well, those things. Budget, so we can, it's not an emergency. The lifespan is over by the point.
Yeah, so in a normal budget, we really would not anticipate spending the kind of money we're budgeting for next year. So we've got normal things that we repair on an annual basis, and we do have a schedule of when the life expectancy. We've got a roof contractor that we approved at the last board meeting who makes sure that we get an annual assessment on the roofs and the conditions of a lot of our buildings. A lot of our, as Dr. Pruitt Adams said, a lot of our units are old, they're antiquated, and it's time to replace them, okay? We've not had the funding to do that in the past. And so we're using ESSER dollars to improve some of these systems now that we have this kind of money. So to answer your question, yes, we do have a normal schedule when we replenish and make improvements, but we also have an accelerated schedule to go along with this because we have access to these dollars that allow us to do this, that'll help us do some additional projects along the way.
Could I add to that?
Yes.
One of the things that Miss Yvonne Green has done this year is she's created a spreadsheet that has clustered, for lack of a better word, and I'm looking at her in case I screw it up. But there are things that are of an urgent nature. They're in the envelope. Did I say that right? They're in the envelope. Those take high priority. And then this spreadsheet goes on for pages and pages and pages. Another prime example of, like, we're talking about moving ACE.
Right.
So we've walked buildings now last 3 weeks at least 4 different times. We have walked the buildings on this campus. One, trying to find a space for ACE, so that rhymes. And 2, just looking at the condition of all of our facilities. And with ACE, if we place it at the FCRC, there needs to be a roof, there needs to be asbestos abatement, there needs to be mold taken care of. And those are things that right now we don't know the cost for. But we've gone through, we've looked at all those things that need to be done in order to make it inhabitable and safe. And so those are things that could possibly lead to some of this. So yes, she has developed an extensive multi-page document of what needs to happen, but all of that will not happen this year. It's just too extensive. And so it's going to have to be something that's factored in over time. But I agree with you that we have these monies that will let us do a nice chunk of it, but it will not cover all of it.
And the other thing I just want to remind you all, the capital funds project does not generate revenue on its own. Anything that goes there has to be transferred there from another fund. And so that's the reason we keep coming back to you asking for this transfer. So any other questions related to the capital funds requests? Okay, thank you.
Okay, don't sit down. The next item is item 7D. Summary of fund balance reports for the month ending May 31st, 2022. This item is for discussion. It is the compliance with Board Policy DIAA fund balance. Dr. Singleton.
Can you zero in? I can't. There we go. No, you can come out a little. Okay, all right. So and here we are. Here's the summary of fund balance report. I mentioned this in the CSIP plan. This is the monthly report that we bring to the board that really summarizes what we have in our funds. So let me try to be clear with this and succinct. So this is as of 11 months ending May 31st. Obviously, next month, we're hoping to have a full year snapshot of the revenues and expenditures that came in through the school district. So if you look to the left, we've got general fund, teachers fund, debt service, capital projects, and food services fund, okay? The majority of our revenues that come in, if you look at the revenue column, the second column over, the majority of those monies that come into the school district go into those 2 funds, okay? General and teachers. We talked about debt service. I gave you the debt services fund schedule. That's a part of that 3 pages. Okay. We have a debt services fund, and so we do have monies that go straight there. Okay. But when it comes to capital projects, look at the revenue there. Okay. It is not a fund that it gets its revenue from another source. That's the part that I'm trying to make plain here. Okay. So, and then you see the expenditures. You see the amount of revenue, you see the amount of expenditures. So we always have to budget a transfer from this fund, from the general fund to cover these purchases. Ordinarily, these will be general fund expenditures, okay? But because they cost over $1,000 in nature, we have to capture them at a different level. That's all it is. It's a general fund expense that costs over $1,000. That's all the capital fund is, okay? And then, of course, we've got food services fund, which also you see the revenue come in for food service, the expenditures going out. So all of these funds can cover themselves in terms of the expenditures, except our capital projects fund. We have to transfer from the general fund. So anyway, you see those numbers there. And again, we see the footnote. Let me go on to page 2 and talk about the grant expenditures. We've talked about this for the last 11 months, and we can see each of those columns going over. So we've got in that revised budget column, $24 million. We have encumbered about $1.5 million. We've actually spent about $11.1 million, and we've got an available budget of about $11.4 million left in these funds. And so that means we're filing expenditure reports. We're making sure that all these items and invoices are paid. And so we're expecting that these funds, you see the respective balances on the expenditures in that column. If you look at the revenues, again, these are the same revenues that will cover these expenditures. So on the next page, we don't anticipate any real challenges with being able to meet these obligations. So on the revenue side, we see we budgeted $23 million, and these are just grant revenues. We've received about $8.6 million, and we still got about $14 million outstanding. A lot of this is title. A lot of this is ESSER. And so we're filing expenditure reports at this time to bring those monies into the district's coffers. The very next page, the revenue for the last 11 months, if you look at it, basically at the by fund. So look at the general fund up top, teachers fund, debt services, capital funds, and it just shows you the historical revenue collections in each of those funds. The next page is the expenditures. Again, same thing. If you look at the revenues, look at the expenditures, and so far we've had no issues meeting our expenditure obligations in each of those funds. The next page says revenue for the 11 months, and it looks at it year over year. So in the general fund, if you start in 2020, if you start at the far right column and work your way back, you see $26 million in 2020. In 2021, another $26 million. So pretty steady in those 2 years in the general fund. And then we see almost $30 million in 2022. Again, the result of ESSER funds, ESSER dollars, additional monies coming into the district's coffers. And so that's just the comparison that you will see year over year. The teachers fund has been pretty steady, okay? Roughly $23 million towards this time of the year. If you look at debt service, far to the right in 2020, we see $10.9 million. Then we see $5 million and then $4 million in revenues, okay? The big drastic decrease is in 2020, we received an influx of Prop R dollars. We talked about that. The district got almost $11 million in Prop R funds. And so that's the reason you see that huge number there. And then you see the decline in subsequent years. If you look at the last page under the expenditures, if you look at how did the district spend its money in this time period in 2020, 2021, and 2022, consistently in 2020 and 2021, you will see that the numbers are consistent. And it's just this current year, the 2022, where you see the escalating numbers. And again, a lot of this is all because of the influx of ESSER dollars that we received in our district. That concludes the summary of fund balance report for March, ending March 31st, 2022. May 31st, I'm sorry, 2022. Are there any questions about the summary of fund balance report? Thank you.
The next item is temporary summer cleaning technicians for July 5th through August 19th. It's internal position. And this goes back to, you heard me say a few minutes ago, we've been going through our buildings and you've heard us say how short-staffed we are. However, we want our buildings to be ready. And so making this presentation, which I'm basically giving you most of it.
That is.
Dr. Singleton, this is in reference to policy GDC, support staff recruiting and hiring, and policy GDDA, support staff compensation. At the conclusion, it is recommended that the SAB approve the hiring of 30 summer cleaning technicians for July 5th through August 31st.
August 19th.
August 19th, not to exceed a cost of $122,400, and we ask that that be approved at tonight's meeting. Dr. Singleton.
Thank you, Dr. Pruitt-Adams. Okay, so really to summarize this item, ESSER dollars allow us to focus on our cleaning efforts. You've heard us say many times that we're still short on custodians, but the need in the district is so great. And so what we want to do is let's invest in our own. Let's allow some of our own staff who do not get paid over the summer opportunities to work at $15 an hour, which is the minimum salaries that we've established in this school district, to work as cleaning technicians, which is very synonymous to doing custodial work. We have a number of people that have expressed interest in that group. The DSOs, district safety officers, our IAs, our instructional aides, our cooks. These are 9-month employees who would otherwise not be working. And so we want to give preference to those groups of individuals who have expressed the need to 8 hours a day through the end of the school year to come in and help us do some real good cleaning and turn our school buildings around. And so we are anticipating, or we're asking the board to allow us to hire up to 30 summer cleaning technicians from July 5th through August 19th at a cost not to exceed $122,400. Are there any questions regarding this opportunity? If not, thank you.
Item 7F is the board docs renewal, and this falls under CSIP focus goal, finance goal 2, district to continue to maintain fiscal responsibility. Making this presentation is Dr. Larry. At the conclusion, we would ask approval to renew the board doc end user agreement with Digital Corporation in the amount of $17,000 for the next 5 years. The recommendation is to be approved later in this meeting. Dr. Larry.
Good evening again. Just what she said, seeking approval for payment of $17,000. Thank you. Oh, any questions? No questions?
Thank you. Item 7G, Education Plus Learning Credits. This for 22-23. This also is an item for discussion, and we would be asking approval at the July 12th Board of Education meeting. This is in compliance with CSIP Goal 3, effective instruction, and board policy IA, instructional goals and priorities, IGA, basic instructional programs, IGAB, instructional interventions, and making this presentation is Ms. Barbara Sharp, Professional Development Coordinator.
Good evening. Good evening to Special Administrative Board, Superintendent Pruitt-Adams, colleagues, and community. Tonight, I present to you for discussion the Education Plus Learning Credits. So currently, our district is a member district. That means that any professional development that teachers participate in, we automatically receive 25% off of that request. I would predicted the $9,940, which appears to be the norm for the last 2 or 3 years. If the board approves this additional amount, basically what we're asking is to prepay for these services. If the board approves this amount, that will give us an additional 40% off of any professional development for teachers, administrators, et cetera, in our district. And so at this point, I am recommending the discussion for tonight and looking for approval at the next board meeting at an amount not to exceed $9,940. Are there any questions? Yes, so through Education Plus, they utilize support from the RPDC. And so there are content specialists that come from that division, and they provide additional professional development at our request.
The next item is item 7H, Marzano Resources LLC Purchase and Service Agreement for 22-23 Competency-Based Education. This is compliance with Strategic Plan Goal 3 and District Policy IA, IGA. At the conclusion, it's recommended that, the presentation of competency-based education with Marzano Resources is recommended approval be granted for the purchase of a service agreement with Marzano at the next meeting of the administrative board not to exceed $69,552. Making this presentation is really short, but I do want to add that this is in support of the work we're doing with turnaround schools and because the state is moving to competency-based instruction for instance.
And thank you so very much. So earlier, there were a series of questions that were asked about the competency-based education. And so I took the liberty of highlighting some key terms, demonstration, looking at specific skills. So there's mastery of skills, competency, etc. So I want to point those out to you because that is the move that the State Department is looking at, as certainly as Dr. Pruitt-Adams referenced. So in your packet of information, I provided you some information regarding MSIP 6. And so to the right of this screen is some information that's taken from page 38. You'll notice it uses the word draft. But the connecting piece that I want to share with you is simply what Dr. Pruitt-Adams has just shared with us. And that number one is that the need for a competency-based education is based upon the college and career readiness requirement from DESE. And it's also a way for them to demonstrate continuous improvement for all school districts. So they've kind of outlined for us a scoring guide, if you will. But I wanted you to have that information so that you would know that there is a direct need for us to begin this process. It's not just that we're doing it arbitrarily. So it's connected to M66 as well as looking at basically performance requirements. Outline some bulleted items here. We're hoping to develop some common vocabulary as professionals as we begin this initial professional development. And that certainly will help to support the indicators, MSIP 6 standards and indicators. Ultimately, we are really on the basic planning stage at this point, getting general information about this concept. So eventually, once we finish with this initial training, then we hope to begin generating some form of a plan that will help us to continue to advance our work. And then we're looking to refine some of those essential skills that our students will need to prepare them for college, military, the workforce in whatever form that they desire. And then finally, again, continuous school improvement. So as we make the shift, I want to tell you the good news about this process that we're going through is that this isn't anything that's really new. Some of you may have heard the term mastery learning. And so competency-based education has some connection with mastery learning and some other terms I'll talk about in just a moment. But as we make the shift, we're looking at transitioning away from the traditional credit hour to content mastery. So it is simply that, showing that you have mastered that skill, looking at transitioning from the focus on teaching and then actually having some evidence that learning is occurring. Then the transition shifts again from the time and time in general, student seat time, K through 12, and they're sitting going through a formal educational process, and then learning and variable, so that this process could very easily mean that our scholars would end up completing school earlier because they've mastered those skills. But that would be a process that we would work through based upon the knowledge, the skill, and certainly the aptitude. That's the KSA. So this is a kind of another quick reference for you to think about as we make the shift. If we just talk about from tradition and then moving to the center, which is the transition, and then finally to the far right, which is the transformation, we think about traditional education and we think about you kind of teaching to the middle. You are working through a process to generate that information. Whereas we go through the competency-based, ultimately, we're focusing specifically on the student and the needs of the student. Shifting again from passing grades to mastery of content, age-based and seat time, I talked about that earlier. And then the end of the year, in terms of instead of waiting until the end of the year to say you're promoted and you're going to the next grade level, now we're making the shift and we assess students if they're ready to shift and go to the next level. These are some other terms that I just wanted to share with you that help to make another connection. So we're not just talking about the terminology, but we're also talking about usability, what groups are participating with these different frameworks. So whether we're talking about competency education, we're talking about mastery learning, performance-based or standards-based grading. And to the far right, I've given you some examples of some states, school districts, et cetera, that are using those concepts. I do know that Missouri, that varies for us. I know that there's been quite a bit of work that has been occurring in Pattonville. And so they are working to really create a really solid model. And so I've been kind of looking and trying to study their work. But this just gives you an idea of some of the terms and how they cross over. So as you think about mastery learning, that really started in the 60s, and so we're just kind of progressing with these concepts. Okay, so the request for the services is a 3-day request. And so I've outlined what's going to happen the first day. We've already identified the date. So we are going to be working primarily with leadership at that point. Second and third day will occur in September and October, and that will be working primarily with our professional teaching staff. There is a book that will come with this, professional development. That is a book, Handbook for Personalized Competency-Based Education. So this request is for the professional learning support in an amount not to exceed $69,352. And this will come from Marzano Resources, LLC. I'll take any questions that you may have at this time.
I have a question in regards to the mastery learning as opposed to the credit hour. What does this mean for our students who may move out of state? Does somehow this mastery learning translate into it? So they go to Carolina or Atlanta and they're not using this process. Is there something that says this mastery learning is the equivalent to this amount of credit hours so that you get, okay.
I think because we're just beginning an initial phase of it, it still is a learning process for us. And so I'm sure as we work through this process, we will look at some standards.
I know you indicated Pattonville was doing some work. They've been doing some work around this for the last 7 years, I believe. And they piloted in a school. And they built in the process that when John transferred back to the traditional school, even in that district, there was a way of translating the standards or the competencies that were accomplished based upon the grade level of accomplishment. However, but their report cards are what we're talking about transitioning to. And so it was more of John has mastered this skill. The other thing that they did in their research is John was in math doing those priority standards that were fifth grade, but in say in reading was not. John would take the math test based upon his level of ability. So he may be taking a fifth grade test here and a third grade math test here. But they also built in the process on how to translate that to parents. Because society is, I won't say brainwashed, the mindset is I have to get an A, B, C, D, or F. And that whole transition. So Mike Fulton, who was the superintendent at that time, is actually leading this work for DESI. And there are several other superintendents who sit on this committee as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Is this budgeted? It says on the summary, budgeted, yes, no?
It is budgeted and it will come from PD 1% funds.
The next item is item 7I, I'm sorry. And it is the literacy lab. This item is for discussion. It is in compliance with CSIP Goal 1. This proposal has been sent to our legal team for review, and it is in relevance to policy IGAB at the conclusion. This is for discussion, and then we will ask for approval at the next Board of Education meeting.
Good evening again, board members, Dr. Pruitt-Adams and colleagues. This evening, I am requesting board discussion for the district to enter an agreement to implement literacy labs for the 2022-2023 school year. It's a state mandate that school districts provide supplemental support for scholars in the area of reading. For the district's Renaissance reading data, 86.8% of our scholars in the district are reading below grade level. Literacy labs will afford scholars in grades KG-3 an opportunity to receive additional intensive reading support in an effort to accelerate learning and close the reading gap. In addition, the internal coach, master coach, and tutors will engage school instructional teams in discussion regarding student reading data in an effort to create reading intervention plans for scholars that will promote individual reading growth for each student. Also, the implementation of literacy labs will support the district's work around improving student reading performance for all scholars. Also, I do have Ellen and Sarah online to answer any questions that you may have regarding the literacy lab project. Do you have any questions? Thank you.
The next item, next two items, as a matter of fact, are memorandums of understanding between service providers. The first one is the Soul Fishers Ministry, and making this presentation is Dr. Tanya Patton, and this is item 7J. Dr. Patton.
So there are two MOUs that I'm bringing forth. It's Soul Fisher Ministry as well as the Little Bit Foundation. Both of these organizations support our district immensely. The Soul Fishers have after-school programs in 4 of our schools to help support our parents. They feed them, they tutor them, they take them home. The Little Bit Foundation provides uniforms, anything a child needs, tennis shoes, uniforms, school supplies, book bags, all of that. All of it is free of charge to us. The recommendation is that the board approves both MOUs. Are there any questions? And it's free. Did I say free?
No.
It's free. Thank you.
We did both at one time. Thank you. I don't know why you're sitting down though. The next item is the active shooter item. And this item is also for, my pages, I think. This item is for discussion. It is in compliance with CSIP collaborative cultures. It is also in compliance with Missouri Senate Bill 75. And at the end of the presentation, it's recommended that the SAB approve the service agreement pending the legal review as presented at a cost not to exceed $11,000. Dr. Pat.
Good evening again. We have, as you know, every school, or maybe you don't know, but every school has to do an active shooter drill, and we do it with all of the employees. Sometimes we do it with the students. So we haven't done one since 2017, and so I'm proposing that we do an active shooter drill at the high school on August the 19th. It would involve all of our employees within our district, and we are working with Tactical One, Tier 1 Tactical company to help us perform the active shooter drill. Are there any questions? All right, thank you.
What's MOU? We went so fast, I didn't get to ask.
Was memorandum
Oh,
of
okay,
understanding,
okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
Mayor Reggie scared us, so we're going real fast to get through this.
Okay, the next item is item 7M. It is the 22-23 revised salary schedule, custodial and food service. The board recently approved this item, however, we found that some of the steps were misaligned. So it is recommended that the special administrative board approve the 22-23 revised custodial and food service salary schedule at approval later in this meeting. This is compliance with policy GDBA, support staff compensation. And Ms. Williams is here to answer any questions that you may have. And Dr. Singleton.
Are there any questions?
That concludes all of our items for discussion. We are now ready for consent agenda. Ms. Morrill, I'm turning it back over to you.
Thank you. Board members, we are now moving to the item 9, which is our item for consent agenda. Or 8. Oh, I'm sorry, 8, the approval of consent agenda items. In our consent agenda items, we have quite a few items. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? May I have a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you. We will now go to item 10, which is the items for action. The first is the 22-23 proposed budget final draft. May I have a motion? May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? All in favor?
Aye.
The thinker's gonna jump on us. Item B is the capital projects fund balance, additional transfer request not to exceed 1.4 million. May I have a motion? May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item C is temporary summer cleaning technician from July 5th through August 19th, internal position. May I have a motion? May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
So I know the purpose of one concern. Through purpose is clean. You got DSO is clean. I mean, what is the training that takes place?
Sure. So our facilities department, they will all be under the lead custodian. There's a lead at every building. And so that's who they will report to. But I can assure you that myself, superintendent, most of the cabinet members, again, I've asked them to step into the buildings because, and we explained this to them at the meeting just the other day, that these jobs are being created for the purposes of cleaning and enhancing our buildings. And that's what we fully expect to be happening. If anybody's lounging around and not being serious, we will send you home. Okay? No ifs, ands, and buts about it.
There is a list that she was part of the Sherry and Ms. Green
Yeah.
had that outlines how to clean a room. And as much as we've walked around, we've hit almost all of the buildings in the last 2 weeks. We've told them we will be back. And we were very clear last week that if they are not coming to work, then we don't need them. This is about making our building clean for our scholars and our staff, that when they walk back in and be started in school, it is a welcoming, clean environment.
And I hope you've noticed the difference on the grass.
That is true.
Yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
The next item is item B 2223, revised salary schedule for the custodial and food service staff. May I have a motion? May I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
It is now 9:15.
Yes. The last item is the board Dr. Yule. May I have a motion? May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Finally, item 11 is adjournment. May I have a motion? May I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
We,
Oh, we said we vote on that at the next.
all in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Yeah, so bad.
So when are we gonna do this? All these.
They just consented. We just said amen.